Chapter 13. The Hollow. The eagle and the pigeon snapped the umbrella in their talons and burst upwards above the treetops. Leaping on Pip and Hans, the other animals tied their paws tightly behind their backs with twine. The rabbits took positions either side of them, the cat following from behind, her tail swishing from side to side. Hans gave Pip a look that silently told her not to be afraid, but his eyes were wide with unease, and she felt the sting of tears in her own. The rabbits pulled black hoods over their heads, and the world before them disappeared. Shoved forward, Pip walked blindly on, hearing muffled yells of protest from Hans beside her. For what seemed like hours, Pip felt the crunch of dead leaves under her paws until the air grew thick with a woody smell. She was pushed through a wall of twigs that scratched against her fur, and her ears pricked, hearing the familiar sound of Morse code. "What is this?" a female voice said, bristling with the alarm. The dits and dars stopped at once. "Who are they?" "Germans," one of the rabbits said, ripping off Pip and Hans's hoods. "The sheepdog sounded the alarm, and we found them at the edge of the forest." Pip blinked. They were inside a large hollow underneath a fallen oak tree. Its thick, leafy boughs created an oval chamber, and the morning light dappled the crisp ground with rippling white honeycomb. A bullfinch crouched in a large nest concealed in the upper branches, wearing the same headphones and holding the same triggers Pip had seen in Bernard Booth's hideout in London. Directly beneath them stood a hedgehog with little brown eyes that creased at the sides with wisdom. She was surrounded by a small crowd of wild rabbits, squirrels, rats, field mice, 3 beavers and a stag, dipping his grand head of antlers to the ground to peer inside the hollow. The cat sat on her haunches beside them and purred. "We saw them come down from the sky," the other rabbit said. "In that." He pointed his paw to the umbrella, clutched in the eagle and white pigeon's talons as they dropped into the hideout from above. The birds placed the umbrella on the ground and stood to attention, gazing at it with shock and confusion. The hedgehog scowled. "Who are you?" she said, with all her prickles standing on end. "Who are you working for?" "Madame," Hans said, drawing a deep breath, his voice tinged with annoyance. "We are on the same side." "I'll be the judge of that," the hedgehog snapped. "Who are you working for?" "Bernard Booth." "Bernard Booth," she scoffed. "He would never send me a rat and a mouse kitten with an umbrella without warning." "G.I. Joe, the messenger pigeon," Hans said, furrowing his brow. "He was meant to tell you that we were coming. He was travelling ahead of us." "G.I. Joe?" the white pigeon cooed in a soft American accent, and her head cocked inquisitively from side to side. "Did you say G.I. Joe?" "There's been no sign of him," the eagle said, and frowned suspiciously, glancing at the white pigeon beside him. "Nazi falcons are trained to kill messenger pigeons. Almost none survive these days. Bernard Booth knows that better than anyone. He wouldn't risk sending his fastest pigeon when he could send a message via Morse code." He turned to the hedgehog and spoke in hushed tones. "Don't trust them, madam. Spies are everywhere. The enemy are trying to infiltrate us. This is a sensitive time. Many are still in hiding after D-Day, and the Allied advance still rests in the balance." The forest animals murmured anxiously, and Pip racked her brains for a way to help. Everything Hans said they didn't accept. She knew he was German, but he was a member of Churchill's secret animal army, and Dickin, G.I. Joe and Bernard Booth trusted him completely. He had a strong spirit and a tender heart, and she had to do something to help him. "John has a long moustache," she cried, remembering the message in the scroll she had stolen from G.I. Joe. An astonished gasp echoed in the hollow. "What did you say?" the hedgehog asked, turning to Pip with bristling prickles. "I said John has a long moustache," Pip repeated at the top of her voice, trying to sound as confident as possible, but she still had no idea what the words meant. "C'est terrible," a rat said under his breath. and his hind leg instinctively thumped the earth with worry. How do they know the code? The other animals in the hollow looked at one another in alarm. Enemy spies, they muttered. No, Pip squeaked, but none of the animals were listening to her. They've intercepted the message from G.I. Joe. They're here to sabotage the plan. There's only one way to deal with enemy spies, the eagle squawked with furious, gleaming eyes. Take them to the interrogation wall. The forest animals cheered, pouncing on Pip and Hans. They roughly dragged them to the depths of the hollow where the trunk of the fallen tree had been gnawed into a jagged, semicircular cavity. Shoved against it, Pip shuddered at the torn tufts of fur and feathers snagged on splinters of wood. "Wait, you don't understand," Hans protested, struggling like Pip in his bonds. But it was hopeless. The gang of animals were too many and too strong. "Listen to me," he cried, cornered against the wall. "We are here to help you." "Stop," Pip cried, searching for a way to escape, but the animals surged forward, baring their teeth and claws. "We are on your side." "Nothing you say can save you now," the cat hissed, curling her lips around pointed fangs. Pip glared into her savage, dilated eyes, trying to ignore the fear trembling under her fur. "Back off, you stinking hairball," Pip spat, ignoring the cat's tail swishing from side to side. A long, low growl sounded from inside the cat's throat. "We haven't done anything wrong." The eagle leapt towards her, furiously beating his wings. Cowering in alarm, Pip scrunched up her eyes as her ears and whiskers blew about her face. "Leave her alone," Hans cried. "What if I told you that I was once a Nazi, a Goliath rat?" The forest animals snapped their attention away from the little mouse at once and roared with anger. Hans's words struck Pip like a blow to the heart. "I didn't know what I was getting into," he said, turning to her before facing the snarling mob. "I hate the enemy, and I can tell you why. When you hear what I have to say, you will see that we are not a threat to you." "Stop," the hedgehog said, her brown eyes blazing with authority. "If we don't listen to their defence, then we are no better than those we hate." The gang of animals loosened their grips and begrudgingly backed away from the prisoners. "Speak then, rat," he said calmly. "But I warn you, if you lie, I will have no control over what happens to you." "If you don't believe me," Hans said, breathing heavily with distress, "then you can gladly kill us both."